Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new Let's Play adventure from the mysterious JG. I don't know how much anticipation has built up, but this is a one that's been promised for a while that I hadn't gotten around to delivering until, well, now. This was the game that I had an opportunity for people who donated to Zerfall's 2021 charity stream to have a character in my playthrough that was coming up, and so without further ado, let's get to Romance of the Three Kingdoms 14. Apparently I had Yuan Sword 7 open, I didn't realize. But it's Romance 14 of the Three Kingdoms is the other way to read that title, if you feel like being silly about it. It's taking its time to load here, but I'm sure that it will all be worth it in the end. Yeah, so I didn't really prep a lot of things to say. It's been probably about 2 weeks. I took a stab at starting this LP a couple of weeks ago. Had some issues, including a technical issue, a video that just kind of I did more chit-chatting and got to gameplay slower than I intended. Then I had an episode that recorded fine. Then I had an episode that got lost due to technical issues. And then I had already recorded a fourth video where things went poorly in the game. Which I would have just accepted the bad things that happened. Except then I realized the third video going into it had not recorded, and I didn't realize it. It did record, it came out as a corrupted file. And then I was like, well, am I really going to recreate that gameplay to get myself to the starting point of a video where things went poorly anyway? And finally, I'm just starting over. So I'll explain as we get to the places where it may have been slightly to my advantage that technical issues forced me to restart. And I'll have a little bit of foreknowledge about things that can go wrong very early in this scenario. But yeah, for those who aren't already aware, this is Romance of Three Kingdoms 14. This is a game in which you select a force or create a force to conquer ancient China. And I have never played this game before all the way through an entire game. I messed around with it a couple months ago when I first got it, knowing I would be playing it for my channel eventually. This was a game I played over the weekend, sometimes with an adult beverage in hand, without having done a lot of reading about the game mechanics or anything. Knowing the basics of how these games flow from having played other games in the series, but not really understanding the details of this, I found myself having a little bit of trouble and having things stall. That being said, I have been convinced by people in the comments to play on hard mode anyway, because this is one of those games where the difficulty really more than anything else affects the AI. You can go in and change certain things, like, you know, the rate at which troops replenish for different forces. So you can make it so, and you know, AI-controlled forces have bonuses and how much gold they get, and you're weaker in that respect. I don't really care for games that do that, but this game just has like an AI that's much more aggressive on higher difficulties, and I've even been told that that can make the game move faster. You know, the computer will be more likely to launch an attack that you can counterattack to your advantage, rather than just sitting around and having lots of stuff saved up to fight against you when you attack them. But before we go any further, let's take a look at our created officers, because there's been a little bit of action since my last video. So a few people, I posted everybody's characters. A few people, like, for example, I don't have the video in front of me, so I apologize, I don't have your username. The person who created the character of Da Jun, there was a little confusion about what portrait they were going to get. I believe I counted the rows off correctly and they miscounted, but it's entirely possible that I'm at fault and they were right. Either way, I showcased them with this portrait, and in fact, this is the portrait they want, and that's the portrait they're going to get. They decided they'd rather have a red hat. And honestly, they're a bit more of a warrior character than, you know, Harpo here. And somebody else wanted changes made, and I don't remember who it is. Like I said, I was ready to start this a few weeks ago, and then I kind of stepped away. It might have been Li Jingming had the wrong portrait, actually. Was it Li Jingming had the wrong portrait? Am I crazy? I might be crazy, and I don't want to be over vamping. I do want to get to it at some point here. Anyway, there was somebody whose character kind of ended up, like, they selected a whole bunch of different siege skills, and based just on stuff somebody else was saying in the comments, just Sunda actually. Oh, Mali had a very different portrait from the one that I had selected for them, because again, something happened with counting, and I don't know who they were originally. Or you know what? I'm nuts. Mali that's not it. Mali is one of the new characters. Okay, somebody, I think it might have been Sunda, had set up a character with lots of siege weapon skills, and then somebody else in the comments who knows the game fairly well was saying that, oh, they don't really need that like super high leadership and strategy skill or strength skills they have if they're going to be used primarily for siege. And then the person saw them, was like, oh, well, I mentioned that in the video, and they said, oh, restat me as a cavalry officer. I pretty much left you alone. I think it's fine that you're good at siege, and I really didn't have a way to make you cavalry anyway. But we also had some new characters get added, because there were a few people who didn't get the notification when my prior videos went out about creating characters. So they are all in there now. And then I made Grimmeth. I pestered Grimmeth and Lethal. Grimmeth submitted a character named Samuel Parr, which is a reference to Late Shift, a game that he and Lethal and I went through on Grimmeth's channel. And probably the most interesting thing about his character is, A, he's a jack of all trade. In the real sense, a jack of all trade isn't mediocre at everything. They're good at everything, but they're great at nothing. And that's kind of what we have with Samuel Parr. And also, he decided his adversaries are all of, like, me and my family members and Falger and Aldragon. So that's the thing that he decided would be fun. He made his confidants the Yuan Shao, Yuan Shu, Sun Xuan, and their family Sun Ce and their family members. And if I picked too many Yuans and not enough Suns, then, you know, bite me, I guess. But yeah, Samuel Parr, that's a reference to a character who is kind of a jerk and kind of treasonous and treacherous, so I guess we thought it would be fun that they are into trickery and are kind of an enemy of the other created characters. And I'm going to stick him in a city that needs a good officer but isn't on the front lines, and that will be Grimmeth's fate. We also have Toriyama Rosaru. He just wanted to be a wild and crazy over-the-top war character, so I gave him Kenshin Uesugi's portrait. I'm actually going to change that right now, because in the 4 videos worth of a start to this that I'm scrapping, that just kind of fell apart, Kenshin Uesugi showed up, because I threw in some of the created officers that the game just has, and joined our force, and therefore we had 2 Kenshin Uesugi portraits. It didn't even occur to me that that could possibly happen. So I'm just going to have to pick some kind of rough and tumble warrior guy that Lethal can be in his portrait. Preferably one that I don't already associate with another created character. That was not a bad one. Now we're getting into ministers looking guys. This, I think somebody else already used that portrait in a previous Let's Play. This is Fat John. Here's Bearded Warrior Man. Oh, I like this one. He's got like scars and shit. There you go. That's Lethal now. That is, and Lethal is Toriyama Rosaru. He's got stats that are basically based on what he had. The last time he submitted a character with actual full stat stuff was for Nobunaga's Ambition, so I've given him something similar. And his traits: Summoner, Auspicious, Warrior, Duelist, Annihilator. I think I gave him stats that would make him good at capturing officers in duels. I guess I can just quick see what the stats actually, or what those skills actually are. His traits, rather. So he's good at recruiting troops. He can't be wounded, killed, or taken prisoner. He's more likely to wound and kill enemy officers. He's going to be in duels more often, and he's good at assault. So basically, I wanted it. He's going to be, in times of peace, recruiting soldiers, and in times of war, murdering officers. So I hope, Lethal, if you're watching, that lives up to your expectation for your character. You are warrior crazy man. Oh, no, this is the thing that I keep doing, forgetting to save on this screen. Okay, so that's 10 minutes of the video, and I promised to get to gameplay, so I need to move. So we're going to get going here. We are going to play the Warlords Scenario. I talked about the different scenarios we could play. I'm going to play Warlords. I could easily get 20 minutes just talking about this, what's going on here, but we're going to have original officers appear. Here's what I want to do. I get annoyed with the game's created officers they give you. They're kind of fun. Some of them, like these anime characters, okay, that's kind of a cute random factor. And characters who are clearly from some other kawaii game about Mongolia, sure. Because even if I don't recognize the portraits, I'll see the names, and these are not Chinese names. Same thing goes with characters from Nobunaga's Ambition. But here's the problem. I don't know so much about the history that when I see these characters, Huarong, Huyan Zhuo, Lin Chong, Wu Yong, it doesn't register with me that they're not part of Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to include all these rando officers who aren't part of the scenario just for fun and goofiness, like Kublai Khan, and the various anime doofuses from some anime that I don't know about or care about, including the fact that some of these characters, there's two versions of them, old and young, I believe. And obviously the characters we created, you and me, general viewer, will be in the game. And then these guys who like Zhang Liang, I know a little, I kind of vaguely know who he is. I'm used to seeing him pop up, and it registered in my mind at some point that he's not part of RTK. But yeah, these guys where I wouldn't know, I would just think they're regular officers and probably wouldn't recognize that they're supposed to be awesome. I'm going to leave them out. Okay? So that means we've got a decent chunk. We've got 48 original officers in here. And we are going to position only the officers that were characters submitted for the LP. The rest will be randomly placed. So what I'm going to do is, I think I did the math. We should have 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. No, that's not right. 14 isn't the right count then. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. No, it was 19. No, that's right. Now I remember. So it's 19 officers. So what I'm going to do is have like 12 in our main city. No, actually our main city is going to split off really quickly. So I'm going to end up having only 5 in our secondary city because our primary city is quickly going to split off towards 2 other cities. So Lethal, Grimmeth, Tolpanzer, Feng Xiao, and Malay, Liai, something. They are going to start out in the city of Runan. And they will be affiliated with Yuan Shu. The rest of the created officers are going to start off in our main city. But as I said, we're very quickly going to be breaking out and doing other stuff. You are already situated. So like I'm planning to move on Juchang and Guangling pretty early. So there you got it. All the created officers are assigned to a city in Yuan Shu's force because I'm planning to play as Yuan Shu. Kenshin appeared in Yuan Shu's territory and quickly joined us in one of the videos that got scrapped. I believe it was actually the video that came out corrupted, and maybe that's why the awesome power of the God of War was too much. But like these guys, the anime characters, the game about Genghis Khan, and the the Nobunaga's Ambition characters, they will pop up at random, and if I come across them, I will hire them, and that'll be fun. And if I don't come across them, so be it. All right. Now we have to pick a force in this scenario. For background, I guess I can talk about this later, but Dong Zhuo has just been murdered by Lu Bu. You know what? The scenario intro will go through that. So, again, I want to get to gameplay so I don't break my vague pledge made in the description of the last video. But there's various forces we could play as. Cao Cao has a difficulty of 3 of 5 stars because he's got a lot. He's only got 1 city, but he's got a lot of really good officers. Liu Bei has a difficulty of 5 stars because he's only got 1 city and he's only got 6 officers, which includes himself and his 2 sworn brothers. Sun Ce has a difficulty of 4 out of 5. He's only got 1 city. He's got 17 officers. I find this one a little tricky. I guess it's considered harder than playing as Cao Cao because he has fewer officers, but he's got some weak neighbors that he can easily conquer, which is how my RTKX playthrough went. Yuan Shu is one of the guys who it's considered fairly easy mode. He's got a ton of officers. He starts out with 3 cities, which is a lot for this scenario. And we are playing as Yuan Shu. We got 2 officers. Remember, we added 19 with our created officers, making things a lot easier for ourselves. I don't mind. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun for you guys who submitted characters. So I don't mind the fact that it's a little easier than it should be. But with 2 cities, we still got fewer officers than Yuan Shao, who has more cities. So we're not the most powerful force starting out. But we've got well above average officers, obviously. And although we have 4 retainers, our kingdom itself is strong enough. And you got a guy like Li Jui. He's considered 3 stars. He's got 2 officers, 2 cities, and I guess he's the same difficulty as us because he's got a handful of officers. Lu Bu's difficulty is considered on the high end because he's got a lot of officers but only 1 city, and he's surrounded by enemies. Liu Biao, he's easy mode. He's got a lot of cities. He has a lot of directions he can expand in unopposed. Gongzheng Zan, I would call it more than 3 stars, but I guess if you do well against Yuan Shao, you are a very powerful force, but he's got to deal with Yuan Shao. Ma Teng, another one, reasonably difficult. He's got a lot of officers, a handful of cities. He can't expand without fighting Li Jui, though. And then another one, nobody seems to have 1-star difficulty. Because if anybody should, it would be Liu Biao and Liu Zhang, who both have decent number of officers, 3 starting cities, and have places where they can expand. And because they're remote, they can build up a big power base before anyone can attack. Zhang Lu, 4 stars. He's got a really good city, but he really can't expand. Gongzheng Du, 5-star difficulty, 1 city, not a lot of officers. He's basically boned. He can't expand without fighting a stronger force. Tao Quane, similar. He's got more officers, so it's not quite as bad a position, but he's in a bad spot. Kong Rong, Grimmeth fairly recently played through one of the much older RTK games with Kong Rong as kind of a challenge mode, because Kong Rong is, there's no direction he can expand in where he doesn't have to fight somebody, and he's got few officers, so he's very difficult to win with normally. Same thing goes for Zhang Yang. There's no place for him to go without facing an enemy, and he doesn't have officers. Wang Lang is he's a little more isolated. Yan Baihu is a joke. Liu Yao, he's got enough officers. He was starting already to be a nuisance to me in the game that got cut off. And then Shi Ji, I'm kind of surprised that his difficulty is so high, because he's somebody who, he ruled his area for a long time in real history. He's got 2 cities to start out with, but the cities down there kind of suck. He doesn't have that many officers. So all that is just to give you a general idea. We're going to be starting in central China, and we are going to have Liu Biao, who's quite powerful, right on our ass. We are going to be right in the face of Cao Cao, who is always, whatever the difficulty rating seems to indicate, he's always the most dangerous force in the map. Liu Bei is right there, Lu Bu is right there, and Sun Ce starts out as our ally for story reasons. But the minute our, a certain number of turns stipulated alliance ends, he will immediately start attacking us and anyone else, because he is the little conqueror. that's his deal. So we're going to play as Yuan Shu. And as you may have heard, I switched the sound to Chinese because I don't know why we would be playing, you know, I don't speak Chinese or Japanese. I don't know if you happen to speak Japanese. But as an English speaker, I don't know why I would be playing a game set in ancient China and having Japanese voice acting. There's no particular reason to do that. Auto-historic events will activate. Soldiers healed normal. Suggestions, yes. Disasters, everything I'm setting to normal, except for, I guess I could set lifespan to extended, but it won't really affect our created officers. Female officers will be present. We will use historical cities for free officers, which means the created rando officers will be rando. I moved it up to hard difficulty because people in the comments, these guys in the comments who are telling me to go on high difficulty, I'm expecting you to watch, and I'm not going to do like Grimmett style moratorium on advice. Like, I will read your advice, just don't get upset if I don't take it, or if I'm recording ahead and don't respond to it timely because I'm 5 videos ahead of what you're seeing when you tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tactic damage will be normal. Duels, yes. Run and conquer, yes. I'm just leaving everything basically on the defaults, except that I went into the options elsewhere to set the voice to Chinese, and we are at hard difficulty. It's a little weird to have 5 difficulties, and the third, and like the middle one is called hard, and normal is only the second, but it is what it is. Let's jump in and actually get a little gameplay, though. I'll have plenty of time in the next video to talk about who Yuan Shu is, why I think he's an interesting force to try to play, etc. Because if I don't hurry up, I won't get gameplay. I did intend to have gameplay. Yeah, Dongzhuo, not a good guy. Zhao Chan is basically the Helen of Troy of China. Helen of China, if you will. I guess she's not really Helen of Troy, because Helen of Troy caused a war, where she ended a war. But either way, like, they used their feminine sexay powers to influence great ancient wars. So we basically got Gongsun Zan and Yuan Shao have to deal with each other. Whoever wins that holds the north, and is basically unopposed in a big chunk of China. Cao Cao is trying to make some moves, but Lu Bu comes in from behind and messes him up. Because Lu Bu got chased out by Guo Si and Lu Jui, or whatever their names are.
Oh. Alright, Lu Bu, let's go.
They're kind of my least favorite of the Three Kingdoms is Wu, but my favorite scenario to play might just be Sun Tzu, the Little Conqueror, first laying the groundwork for Wu. It's so much fun. You've got no territory, but you've got great officers, and you just raffle stomp a bunch of weaklings to build something from nothing. It feels really satisfying because it seems like you're building up from ground zero, but in fact it's not really that hard in most difficulties because the enemies that you're fighting are just so poorly prepared.
They called my late father Sun Jin the Tiger of Jiangdong. What am I doing with my life?
That was a little more Starscream and less Slash than I intended. Well, I need to...
Unable to even succeed my father, will I just end up being an underling of Yuan Shu for the rest of my life?
Sun Tzu, please do not be so hard on yourself.
Oh, Shuji! I'm embarrassed you had to see me like this, and hear my voice sounding like this.
No, I'm glad I learned you felt this way. Sun Tzu, what do you think about borrowing some soldiers from Yuan Shu and raising your own army? Yuan Shu has ambitions for the imperial throne. I'm sure he would gladly lend you the soldiers if you put the imperial seal of Yung Guo up for collateral.
Borrow soldiers by putting the imperial seal of Yung Guo up for collateral? I see. Yes, now is the time for decisions. Let's bring this to Yuan Shu tomorrow.
So for backstory, I'll save the backstory for next time. We're almost out of time in this video, and I'm not getting to that gameplay I was going to do. This counts as gameplay. Yuan Shu was hesitant at first when Sun Tzu requested his independence, but his opinion changed when he saw the imperial seal of Yunguo. And Yuan Shu doesn't even get dialogue. We're playing as probably the most important guy who never gets dialogue in these games. Yuan Shu took the imperial seal of Yunguo and immediately gave his support to Sun Tzu, and so began a new chapter in Sun Tzu's life. Yuan Shu debuts as a playable character in Dynasty Warriors 9, which kind of gives you an idea of how important he is in Koai's mind. They make him playable in Dynasty Warriors 9, but Dynasty Warriors 9 is hot garbage, so...
It all worked out. Now there's nothing tying me down.
There's no humor. You're not driven by fear, just driven by yank. Oh, that's... Oh, I probably shouldn't use Chris Benoit's music now that I think about it. Yes, that's all. All that's left is to forge ahead. Who is that coming from over there? Sir.
Oh, you! What's your name? Oh, come on over here, you! Yeah, I'm always glad to see you, whatever your name is.
I heard you claimed your independence. I've been waiting for this moment. I shall join you.
This is the beginning of our era. We shall claim Jiangdong first, and then the world!
Sun Tzu goes to battle. Sun Tzu claims his force. Zhou Yu becomes Sun Tzu's officer. Ah, Yuan Shu, I have been waiting for you. Before we begin to carry out our strategy, let me explain our army's objectives. Our goal is unification of this land. That is the reward that awaits the last four standing. The land we have conquered is... Yeah, we have like Pepto-Bismol land. Like this, our territory is represented on the map through our colors. We always want to make sure we're tooled up and wearing our colors when we march our gang through other territories. Right, check it out. You see the orphans up there in green? We're gonna march right through those lame fucks territories. We can expand our conquered territory by moving our units, but improving our country through domestic affairs while sending out our soldiers into a nearby corps would be a good start. Now, give me your orders. And so we're ready to go. Now I could do that gameplay I promised, but I'm looking at the timer. It's like... We're at like 28 minutes. Any gameplay I do now, just so that I can have done gameplay, it's a bit of a joke. So, when we come back next time, yeah, those intro cinematics, that's part of gameplay, right? Sure it is. What I'll do is just so that we can really jump straight into gameplay next time, I will vamp a little bit at the end of this video, just to explain the scenario slightly. So, here's China. Dong Zhuo was up here. He held the emperor. He had deposed the emperor and replaced the emperor with his younger brother, who he preferred. This was the last straw. Up to that point, he'd done a lot of stuff like cutting off people's ears and, you know, throwing them into, you know, vials of burning hot oil so that they would like burn to death screaming for his entertainment. He had this thing he did one time where he sent his troops off into like a you know, nearby random peaceful village, had all the men killed and all the women taken to be concubines and sex slaves for his men. He had these, you know, the heads of the innocent men they'd killed stuck on the sides of wagons so he could ride back into the city and claim that he'd conquered bandits. He was a jerk. So the whole thing, which you're probably already familiar with, you know, the story of Jiao Chan and seducing Dong Zhuo and Lu Bu and pitting them against each other. This is a plan that was hatched by her father, Wang Ming? I don't even remember now for sure what her father's name was. But yeah, basically, Dong Zhuo gets killed, but fairly quickly, Li Jui, and Guosi, and they have to kind of pick a Jiaju is there. They have to pick one, because in the novels it's very much Li Gui and Guosi. Li Gui and Luosi. Li Jui and Guosi. Whatever. They're kind of co-leaders. Like, they fight each other back and forth, but they're kind of co-leaders of this force. And there's Guosi. But they kind of have to just pick one to be the ruler for RTK purposes. So this force here is essentially the Dongzhuo loyalists who are still holding the area that used to belong to Dongzhuo. They still have a very large army, because Dongzhuo had compiled a very large army. He was a sort of, in some ways, a modern dictator. He knew the only people who thrived under his rule were his soldiers. He knew how to take care of his soldiers, because they are what allowed him to have control over everyone else. So this force is still intact, and you got the Ma's behind them. But what's really basically happened is that after this whole blow up, the Emperor tried to flee. Cao Cao is the one who has his hands on the Emperor at this point. I think, maybe that hasn't happened yet, but Lu Bu also flees. And most of the plot of, like, if the novel's divided into 5 acts, we're kind of at the beginning of Act 2. Act 1 is all about the Yellow Turbans. The Yellow Turbans collapse, and there's this, you know, because this massive power vacuum and decaying central government leads to the Yellow Turbans. Dongzhuo comes out of that as a dictator and tyrant. Everybody else works against Dongzhuo. I mean, there are people like you know, Liu Zhang and Liu Biao have very little involvement, but most of these warlords in the north and central area fight against Dongzhuo. They don't really defeat Dongzhuo, but he collapses on his own. Now all these guys who used to be in a coalition together are scrambling for control over their own territories. Cao Cao, Liu Bei, all the other players that we remember are here. Lu Bu still has a force, because eventually his constant betrayal of everyone who tries to help him, including Yuan Shu, leads to him getting destroyed by Cao Cao and Liu Bei. But we're playing as Yuan Shu. Now, the thing about Yuan Shu is he is the younger brother of Yuan Shao, so they're both very important members of a very noble family. But Yuan Shu is even more of a dickhead than Yuan Shao is. His most famous part of the coalition against Dongzhuo is that he was the one who was in charge of distributing grain. And at one point, when Sun Tzu's father, Sun Jian, was one of the more successful warlords fighting against Dongzhuo and was ready to really push in to... what city is this? Is this Chang'an? That's Xiangyuan. No, that's Luoyang. Anyway, I'm losing track of which city is which, but he's pushing in. He's like making progress against Dongzhuo's forces. We have the big battle at Sishui Gate. He actually is ready to push into the city that Dongzhuo has fled from. But Yuan Shu is jealous of the fact that he's been successful, whereas Yuan Shu has nothing to show for it. So we withhold supplies for Sun Jin's troops, just because he's a jealous douchebag, and that prevents Sun Jin from having the success he should have. So Yuan Shu's main contribution to the alliance is being a selfish asshole who undermines the other members of the alliance. And now we're picking up the tale from there. I'll talk a little bit more about Sun Jin and the Imperial Seal next time, but now in vamping, I've actually gotten this video to be a little on the long side instead of a little on the short side. So next time, we'll actually have gameplay, and maybe a little bit of chit-chat at some point. Maybe not in the next video, but at some point when I'm talking about Sun Tzu, maybe I'll talk about how he got to be where he is right now. Catch you guys.